we are going to move into what all the press was talking about and what's been the topic of conversation for a while, which is red light, green light. Okay, red light, green light is a staple game that is played in the Squid Games. It's the first game. So naturally, it was our first game. And that day, that day was something that I will never forget as long as I live. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but I'm so proud of myself for getting through it. And I'm so proud of everyone that made it through. Even the people that didn't make it through, I'm proud that most of the people stuck it out and were able to, just show a level of strength that they probably didn't even know they had. I damn sure did not know that I had that much strength in me to stand there as long as we did and to go through all that stuff. So let's get into it. We wake up in the morning. I get a 3 a.m., 3:15 wake up call, something like that, maybe 3:30. I don't know. It was early, okay? And they gave us a note the night before that said, if you do not turn on your light that says, hey, I'm awake, it's like a service light or something, they were going to keep knocking, keep calling, keep doing all that stuff. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get up. And I was anxious anyway. So as soon as I heard that phone ring one time, I picked up. I was like, hello, what's happening? All right, I'm up. I got up, hopped in. No, did not hop in the shower. I took a shower the night before because we had to sleep in our tracksuits. So I went to go brush my teeth, wash my face, do all that stuff. Had to do my hair the same way that we had it for our casting photos or whatever photos. So had to do this thing. And then I don't know what I did after that. I panic prayed, pooped probably because I was nervous. And then I went downstairs and they had us called out by numbers. I guess we were going by groups of 50 or 60, something like that. Once your number was called, we were allowed to go past the door, had to check our wristbands and stuff. We got a bag for breakfast. There was a croissant in there. Sorry, all my French people are going to hate that I didn't say croissant. There was a croissant in there. And then there was fruit, other things, water. There was just a bunch of stuff in a paper bag. I was not hungry. I was nervous as hell. So I didn't really eat anything. Our groups got on buses and I met this Australian guy. We literally made eye contact as he was walking on the bus and he sat right next to me. And then his name is also Chad. Yes. He has a burger tattoo on his neck and he is one of the most funny people I've ever met in my life. He pretty much calmed me down. He let me talk. We were just talking the entire time and the bus ride was very long. It was very early. So we both passed out. Got to whatever place we were filming, and we all got separated. It was freezing in there. Let me tell you, it was freezing. So I was the first bus to leave. So I sat on the bus a lot longer because production also didn't want to go inside because they also knew it was cold. They were like, the bus is warm. We're going to sit in here and we're just going to wait a little bit until the other buses get here so we can all go in together because there's no point in us all freezing to death. So we waited. Once we all got off the bus, we went in there. It was a huge space, huge, massive. There were a bunch of tents, A through F or A through I really don't know. But we were divided into groups of 50 or 60 or whatever. We were each brought into our respective tents after you lined up behind the letter that corresponded with your numbers. And there were heaters in the tents. There was food. They finally gave us snacks. So we hadn't had snacks or we weren't allowed to have coffee or tea that was caffeinated. We weren't allowed to have anything caffeinated. So those were still decaf things, but decaf still has a little bit of caffeine in it. So it helped a lot. Just getting warm was a struggle. So we were all crowded around the heaters, which was great. We still had our coats on and stuff like that. So it was nice to have that and just talk with people. That is the first time we were actually allowed to speak to each other, officially. So everyone started doing their scheming, their talking, all that stuff. But mind you, we were only with about 50 to 60 other people that are in your number range. So you have everyone in every other tent is probably doing the exact same thing. So unless you did what I did and you were able to kind of sneak off and talk to people in the elevators, you had no idea who else was in those tents. You had no idea what was going on in those tents other than what was going on in your tent. So we got our squibs on, which is basically a fake blood pack that you put on. It's like a vest, Mine was extra tight, could not breathe. So one of the guys loosened it up for me, and then eventually later a lady tightened it again. I was like, you should know, I have boobs. You have boobs. You should know how much this hurts right now. But whatever, we got those on. Some people got real microphones, and most of us had like dummy mics on. I had a dummy mic on. I just assume it's because who wants to pay for 456 microphones, especially when a lot of these people are going to get eliminated anyways, and you don't know who's going to get eliminated. So that was something that really pissed me off in the article. I was like, yeah, we all, like most of us had dummy mics on. They did mic certain people up, and I assume it's because those are the people who they recruited to be on the show. There are people with like 600 plus thousand followers on Instagram, million followers on TikTok. Like I assume they want to hear what they're saying because, you know, those are the people who are going to be promoting the most. Those are the people who are going to reach the most people when they start promoting for the show. So I was like, makes sense to me as a normal person. But I didn't mind that I had a dummy mic on because actually 3 of the people I was standing around had real mics on. So everything I was saying anyway was being caught, which can be a good or bad thing. I have no idea because I speak very unfiltered and I usually don't regret what I say. So we will see what actually makes it into the show and what they, you know, deemed appropriate enough to put on the show. But all that aside, we were in the tents for maybe an hour or so. Don't know what time it is. We aren't allowed to know what time it is. I asked several times. They're like, we're not allowed to tell you because the games have officially started, and no info. I did start seeing the sun rising. So I was like, okay, it must be about 7 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock. Great. I was basically trying to turn myself into like a sundial. I was like using my hand. I was like trying to figure it out. Wasn't working. Didn't know. Didn't even care because after a certain point I was freezing. They gave us boxes of hand warmers and foot warmers. So they were trying to keep us as warm as possible. They did not know it was going to be that cold. No one could have predicted it was going to be that cold months in advance when they planned this. So, I mean, it is what it is. We kept lining up. They would take us out of the tents, line us up, make sure everyone was there. The bathrooms that they had, like the portable bathrooms, were actually heated, so you could hide in there if you wanted to. There was food. There was everything you could possibly need, except for, you know, the 60-degree weather that we would have preferred. But everything else we needed was there. It took us about another 3 hours to actually start the games. They lined us up. They escorted us in there, and they wanted to see our reaction to the space. Everyone assumed it was going to be red light, green light anyways. So when we walked in there, we just pretty much all jaws on the floor, looking around. Everything looked exactly the same as the game, except the doll wasn't as tall, but everything looked exactly the same as it did in the games. We were all so stunned. It looked amazing. Production spared no expense. It was dope. I can't even lie. It was dope. We stood there for a minute. They got like a bunch of like action shots of, all right, look intimidating. All right, look excited. All right, look at this person next to you. All right, now have conversations. Just, you know, random conversations. And they were like zooming into people's faces, and it was just like really weird. They did call certain people to like kind of put them together. Random people who didn't even know each other. They were like, all right, number 31 or number 205. These are random numbers, by the way. They were like, all right, you guys get together, have a conversation right here. And they would just film it. I was like, that's so weird. That's so awkward. It's like saying, act natural. Like, it was just the weirdest thing. But so I guess some people were bitter that they didn't get chosen for that. But like I said, it is what it is. Like, just be happy that you're there. I was. So another hour passed, and they kept lining us up, taking us back to the tents, lining us up, taking us back, lining us up. And it was just a long process. And I guess after like being there for about 5 hours, we finally got a chance to start the games. They read us the rules, did all the stuff. We took one practice round, which took about like 5 seconds. They just wanted people to be able to hear the song. But in the rules, when they were explaining them, they told us that once she stopped singing, not once her head spun back around, once she stopped singing, you have to be dead still. You cannot be moving. You cannot be twitching, fiddling around, getting into place. You have to be still. I don't know if that was lost on a lot of people. I don't know if they just didn't hear it, but we had opportunity for questions. We had so much time. You had to be dead still. They also informed us that we would have to wait a few minutes as they adjudicated, because we were separated, I guess, into quadrants. And there were people up there with binoculars. There were sensors in our jackets. There were sensors on the ceiling. There was drones flying around. I guess they had to look at each person individually and see if you were moving or not. So they said it's going to take a few minutes. We asked, how much is a few? How many minutes, maybe? She's like, oh, not a long time, like 10 to 15 minutes. 10 to 15 minutes, standing perfectly still. That was the hardest pill to swallow when she said that. I was like, okay, all right. Immediately people started strategizing. They were like, all right, what position am I going to hold for 10 to 15 minutes? What can I do? There were people crawling, seeing if crawling would work, if they froze. I was like, actually, good idea. You could definitely hold a tabletop position for 10 to 15 minutes and not really shift around. That's good. People were just on the walls trying to practice, holding themselves up on the walls. Again, decent strategy. Not my strategy, but decent. When the games actually started, that first song, everyone just tried to sprint it out, bolt it out, whatever. Because we were all just in a clump and we tried to kind of separate yourself from people. It was hard because people were tripping, falling, because we were stumbling over each other. It was just the scariest thing. One man was leaning on me and he was bigger than me. I'm like, yo, get off me. You're huge. Another thing, if you were still behind the starting line, because there were so many people, if you're behind the starting line, you still had to freeze. You still had to stop where you were because they were still going to eliminate you if you moved. So some people didn't even cross the starting line. One of my best friend, Chad, 286, did not cross the starting line the first time. I, stiff arming people, not really, but just sharking my way through, made it past the starting line, but not very far. I was 2 steps past it. So it was a mess. Okay. Not many people got eliminated that first go around, I guess because everyone was so on top of each other they could not see. And they also mentioned that it was the people who were moving the most that would be eliminated. Not just everybody who moved a little bit, did a little bit of this, little shuffling. Whoever was moving the most that they saw, that the sensors picked up, that the adjudicator saw, everything in general, they would be eliminated. So my strategy when I heard that is to try to observe people as I'm going, see who looks like they're shaking a lot, see who seems like they're a little unstable, stand behind them. Because I won't be eliminated, they will. As long as I'm always behind someone who's shaking more than I am, or moving more than I am, shivering more than I am because it was freezing, then, I should be okay, right? Well, I was, right, because I made it past. But, that was my strategy. So we're going through it, and a lot of people said that they didn't have hand warmers. Yes, they did take our hand warmers away the first time for when we had to line up and we were doing the test run, but you were allowed to get hand warmers back. Whether you asked for them or not, that was on you. I asked 2 different people, so I had 2 sets of hand warmers, one in my left pocket, one in my right pocket. So when I stood to freeze, I had my hands in my pockets each and every time. One, because I'm fidgety and I know that I will move my hands and I don't want to be eliminated for doing this. So I would put my hands in my pants pockets and they were warm. They were very warm. Okay. So that's another thing that made me upset about those articles. You were allowed to have hand warmers. You just had to ask for them. Okay. The production at a certain point stopped coming up to you to ask you if you wanted them. I guess because people were turning them away or were like, oh, I already have some, whatever. So they stopped asking eventually. You could go up and ask them, hey, can I go to the bathroom? Hey, can I have another set of hand warmers? Hey, can I do this? Can I do that? People just weren't asking. So that is on you if you didn't ask. But I digress.